acquaintance to us all. Today, we're in a relationship with it. Except, most of us still want to treat it like that distant relation we want to keep ignoring. We've all been hearing a little about climate change and what it's doing to us. Some of us even sit in drawing rooms and talk about it. But then we get up and move on with our lives. After all, why should we let a problem that's not personal in nature interfere with our flow? We feel like we're outsiders, spectators, looking in on the greatest crisis facing humanity. Your feelings about climate change are misleading. What's real is your privilege. Climate change is affecting us all in more ways than one. It's there in the food you eat. High carbon dioxide levels in the air are decreasing the nutritional value of staple crops like rice and wheat. It's there in the air you breathe. Per a Harvard University study, 1 out of 5 people died in 2018 due to fossil fuel emission. That's 8.7 million people who died due to the burning of coal, diesel, and petrol. The University of Chicago says that an average citizen of Pakistan loses 2 years of their life expectancy due to bad air quality. Maybe you can afford an air conditioner, but you will step out of the room sometime or the other, and the heat wave will get you. Maybe you think climate change won't come where you live, but Karachi flooded once again in the monsoons of 2020, and the rain didn't spare people living in brick houses. Climate change is your faithful companion. It's there in the room with you. It's there when you're planning for your future, and I promise you, it'll be staring your children right in their faces when there is no water and food is in limited supply. You have to treat climate change personally. That's the first step. A very prominent reason why we don't make climate change personal to us is because we think it's a problem for another country, another demographic, and definitely another financial strata. I can't stress enough how much climate change is impacting Pakistan and Pakistanis. It's true that our unstable economy, having agriculture as the vertebra to our economy, high population rate, an eclectic topography with the glaciers in the north and the Arabian Sea in the south, low literacy levels, and next to no awareness about climate change are all making Pakistan extremely vulnerable to the phenomenon. Pakistan contributes less than 0.8% to global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, per the German Watch, we are the 5th most impacted country in the world by climate change. Another reason why we don't take climate change personally is because whenever we talk about it, we're thinking about melting glaciers and ice caps, droughts, floods, cyclones. But we aren't stressing enough on what all these impacts of climate change are doing to actual real-life individuals. Climate change has taken on a human form in the way it's affecting individuals and communities. How much someone is going to be impacted by climate change is contingent upon a number of factors, including their social standing, their financial well-being, their access and control over resources, and their gender. Today, I'm going to be focusing primarily on gender. Climate change is impacting women more than men. Climate change is impacting women inequitably. Now, a lot of people ask me, how is it possible that if climate change is impacting a region, it still ends up impacting women more than men? Well, the reasons for this are pretty simple. There are culturally ingrained traditions, the need to keep women in parda or away from the prying eyes of men, and the limited economic opportunities women have relative to men. Now, even within women, certain marginalized groups of women are impacted more adversely. Disabled girls and women, refugees, widows, single girls, and those from ethnic, religious, and sexual orientation minorities are more adversely impacted. If you ask me why, in a nutshell, once again, it's the limited economic opportunities that women have. Now, one of the best ways to understand how climate change impacts women inequitably is by talking about the real-world impacts on them. In our part of the world, culturally, it is women who are responsible for running households, cooking, cleaning, and making sure that the needs of elders, family members, and especially children are met. Climate change is diminishing access to natural resources like firewood. This makes completing otherwise uncomplicated chores like cooking and cleaning difficult. Many women are now anxious, stressed, and depressed because they can't do what they want to do, which is run their households effectively. The situation is exacerbated by a lack of water. A report I co-authored for Oxfam in 2019 titled Climate Change-Induced Migration in Sindh, Pakistan, we discovered that an average woman in rural areas of Sindh will travel a distance of 2 kilometers in extreme weather, sometimes multiple times a day, to collect water from scattered wells and hand pumps in the region. They will collect this water in metal pots that they will place on top of their heads. When spoken with, these women complained of backaches, headaches, hair loss, and a sheer feeling of despondency because of the effort and labor required to access what is a basic human right. The worst part is, most consumers of that water will suffer from diarrheal infections and other waterborne diseases. Women who travel long distances to collect water are more vulnerable to sexual harassment, violence, and attacks by wild animals. The World Health Organization says that girls and women who travel long distances to collect water are malnourished and more prone to diseases than their male counterparts. Now, of course, if you can't access natural resources like firewood and water, you're going to want to leave that area. Climate change-induced migration has become a reality for Pakistan. It's a global reality, and Pakistan is experiencing it like never before. It's happening right now. But climate change-induced migration poses an additional set of challenges for women. A lot of these women don't really have a say in whether they want to migrate or not. Now, if women will accompany men on seasonal migration, which is generally to adjoining districts to work on agricultural land during the harvest and sowing periods, these women will work alongside men throughout the day. They will not access makeshift washrooms, and then they will not even sleep at night. Their right to privacy is violated when they have to sleep next to men they are not related to. And they are worried for their children and families. They fear attacks by wild animals, by snakes, and mosquitoes carrying dengue and malaria. With a rise in the average regional temperature of Pakistan, there is also an increase in the spread of vector-borne diseases like dengue and malaria. In some cases, women will be left behind while the men in the family go off for seasonal migration. In these cases, these women will be vulnerable to natural disasters, high levels of poverty, sexual harassment, rape, and violence. Now let's talk a little about natural disasters. Natural disasters affect women more than men. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature says that women are 14 times more likely to die in natural disasters than men. The reasons for this are downright depressing. It is the sheer lack of socialization opportunities present to women and girls in our part of the world. Boys and men learn how to swim. Girls and women don't. In fact, can't. Boys and men know how to climb a tree. Girls and women never have that chance. 75% of all casualties in the Asian tsunami of 2004 were women. 90% of all fatalities in Bangladesh during the cyclone of 1991 were women. A lot of these women refused to leave their homes without a male relative being present. A lot of these women didn't want to be rescued by male rescue team members with wet clothes clinging to their bodies. Many women across Pakistan can relate to this. Our culturally ingrained traditions are making women choose death over being rescued. Interestingly, it's not just in the agricultural world that more women than men die during natural disasters. Even in the industrialized world, like the United States, the maximum number of casualties reported during Hurricane Katrina was single African American women. The only place they could afford to pay rent fell in the disaster risk zone. Even the opportunity for women to respond to natural disasters is different than that available to men. In India, a study found out that women actually find out about impending natural disasters later than men. Now think about it. In Pakistan, if the source or access to information is through a cell phone, and a family can only afford one cell phone, who will have it? The man in the family. Or if the access to information has to come from the local police thana or police station, or even the local market, who will be around there? The men, not the women. Now let's talk a little about livelihood, the actual backbone, I think, to the problem. In Pakistan or in rural areas of Pakistan, the primary sources of livelihood for women can be reduced to three: agricultural produce, the rearing and sale of livestock, and the breeding and sale of fish from fisheries. Climate change is affecting all three of these sources of livelihood. This means that women are losing out on the only source of income that they know how to bring. Unlike men, women don't have diversified skill sets. They can't get up the next day and become mechanics or laborers. Climate change is taking away the only money they know how to earn. Not just that, in our part of the world, because women aren't traditionally allowed to exercise their inheritance rights or own land, climate change is taking away the financial security from women. The intensity with which climate change impacts adolescent girls and women is by and large the same. However, there are some impacts that are exclusive, unfortunately, to adolescent girls. When women need help completing household chores that climate change has made difficult now, or more difficult now, it will be the girls who will be asked to leave school, not the boys. Climate change isn't letting young girls study. In many parts of the world, climate change has increased child marriages. When families are thrust into abject poverty because of climate change, they will marry off their young daughters. That's one less mouth to feed. Climate change is subjecting young girls to human rights violations and even forcing them into human trafficking. Climate change is not allowing women and girls to feel safe at home. I wish I didn't have to give you all this depressing information. But the truth is, the reality is this dire. On the ground, this is exactly what's happening. However, the good news is there are still some effective solutions we can adopt to make sure that climate change doesn't impact women and girls inequitably. We can aim for gender-sensitive adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk responses at a local, national, and international level. Adaptation policies involve adjusting to the impacts of climate change and reducing one's vulnerability to it. Mitigation refers to cutting greenhouse gas emissions altogether. Now, what can we do? We can make sure climate change education is compulsory in schools, colleges, and universities. Girls need to be made aware of climate change and how it's impacting them. These girls will go home and talk to their mothers, aunts, and grandmothers. Awareness will spread. We need to build capacity for women to diversify their livelihood. This isn't a colossal challenge. It can even be something as effective as teaching women how to sew and embroider clothes that they can sell and earn money for themselves. We need to give women access to technology. They need to know how climate change is affecting them. We need grassroots level data in Pakistan. We don't have it. We need it. We even need it for something as simple as deciding where water pumps should be placed and where wells should be dug. Imagine if women had more time on their hands, time that they weren't spending accessing water. Imagine what they could do for themselves. We need women to lead the shift towards renewable energy. Women globally are underrepresented in the renewable energy sector. Now, once again, in Pakistan, because women are responsible for taking household decisions, imagine if more women were choosing to lead sustainable lifestyles. Imagine if more women were choosing renewable forms of energy, conserving energy. Biomass, which is used as a form of energy in rural areas of Pakistan and comes from the burning of animal dung and agricultural waste, kills 2 million women and children annually. Imagine if women were aware of this. They could save themselves and their kids. We need women to make policies for women. We need women to execute policies for women. We need women at every level of the state machinery. Now, in many ways, climate change was magnanimous towards us. It told us it's coming and it told us what it's going to do to us. We were selfish and we ignored it. The problem is, today we can't divorce our reality from climate change and climate injustice. What we can do is start to repair our relationship with climate change. You see, when viewed objectively, climate change isn't the villain in this relationship. We are. We can change that by changing our thoughts and our actions. The first step is being aware and raising awareness. Don't ever underestimate the strength of awareness. Awareness breeds knowledge, and knowledge transcends into power. Knowledge-infused power is all you need to start bringing change today. Thank you.